Well, you're just staring at him right now. That's Randall Kaiser. I'm William Laddick. Welcome to Journey to Service. And we are definitely ready for a show because we're getting down to the wire. So, Mr. Randall Kaiser, welcome again to the show. And how are you?
We are down to the wire, William. And I mean, this will be the week that, make it or break it. We put our money down and throw it on the table and get into the candidacy because that's where we got to be. And it's, sorry?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's perfect timing. Like, I never wanted to get into any kind of competition with these characters that are running in the race, like I've watched a few and I've paid attention to some of them. One in particular, this Kevin guy, who says that he's the only one that is against the mask mandates. Well, he's not. I mean, from day one, obviously, this whole thing to me is word games and mind fuckery, and that's it, and I'll explain that as we go along a little bit. But I think what I'd like to start here today, because this is going to be the video that we introduce ourselves as in the candidacy. So I'd just like everybody to know a few little things about me. You can see where I'm at here, or maybe you can't, but I'll point the camera up for just a second and show you.
Like
these are
the friendly giant used to say, look up, look way up.
Exactly. So these are the fir trees up above Bowness Park on the west end of Calgary, one of my favorite places. But these shoes of mine have walked on the trails and the streets of this city for the last couple of years since I moved into this beautiful city of Calgary. And you might have seen me around. I wear this everywhere. It's one of those things where I wanted to know the city for my own good. But then when I decided to be in this walk in the park to become the mayor of Calgary, I felt as if my path and my walking all over this city and getting to know every inch of it was good. And I challenge any other of the mayoralty candidates to see how many miles they put on the paths in Calgary and how many nooks and crannies they know of, other than maybe downtown or communities where they drive to and stuff like that. I've walked on every street possible and every path possible in this city, and I know it like the back of my hand.
All right, welcome back. We had a few technical issues, and so we had to delay the recording and get Randy back home. Now Randy's back in the comfort of his own home, and hopefully our internet connection is a little more stable and we can continue with the interview. Randall was telling us a little bit about his familiarity of the city. He was really checking out the entire city and getting very familiar with every nook and cranny, like the back of his hand. So that's where we left off. And I think I'll just jump right back in and say, first of all, welcome back, Randall. And you're at the home base now.
Yes, I am, William, and thank you.
Wonderful.
We were out there in the trees and it was lovely, but the internet connection wasn't great. Hopefully we have a better connection here. But yeah, it was just,
fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Okay, yeah. I'm going to just jump right back in. We were talking about, sort of reviewing everything, plus we might have some new viewers on this show. And we thought, let's go back to the basics of Randall's campaign. And one of the basics is comfort income. So let's talk about comfort income. What is it, and why is it that you profess it so highly as something that you want to see happen in Calgary?
Well, my main purpose here is that I believe that every human being deserves their comfort, no matter what. Okay, mental health, physical health, and all of that usually boils down to their monetary situation, right? So I'm a banker at the international levels, well above retail, well above capital management, although that's where we move our funds through, is that 7th level floor usually in the banks downtown. And then also very familiar with capital management, which is where in the world of money backed by autographs and agreements, most of the credit enhancement takes place, okay? So That being said, I want to just back up a little bit and talk about the city for just a second, because as I said, I've traveled on my feet for the last couple of years, thousands of kilometers, okay, thousands of kilometers, averaging 13 kilometers a day for the last year and a half since this whole silly notion of flus and colds started up, right? And it's been a very challenging time for most people because they're fearful, right? And they live in fear, which is not comfort. So that relates to what I want to talk about when I talk about comfort for the people, not only in a monetary sense, but comfort from false fears, okay? False fears, completely, insanely propagandized false fears. There has been 2,600 related deaths, related out of 4.5 million people. That is not a pandemic. That is so far from a pandemic, it's not even funny. Okay, so we're not going to use the language because they ban us for stuff like that. And that is the next insane part of this, and should, if anyone is listening to this video, wake you up to the fact that I have to be careful using language because the government, okay, the govern, control, ment, mind, those that want to control your mind will ban people for even speaking against or speaking, even using their numbers to exemplify the insanity of what's going on in this province, let alone the world. So comfort being that, okay? Now I want to just say that back to the original couple of comments that we made about traveling around the city and being in every large infrastructure process. I was down at the Ring Road development, a bridge across the Bow River by Bowness Park this afternoon, where it's like a multi-billion-dollar bridge, right? That's going in there, and it's taking years to build that one bridge, and the Ring Road included, which is again multi-billion-dollar project. I've been to every small infrastructure project. I live up the hill from the Calgary Stampede ground, where they're building a brand new spanking trade center, again, in excess of $1 billion. They're spending money on all of this infrastructure along the river, Princess Island Park and different places. Just huge amounts of infrastructure being pumped through the system right now. All for what? When we're supposed to be in a monetary crisis? And what are they saying? Well, we're doing that to try and keep the economy going. Well, they closed the economy because they shut off people like myself who are in the banking business, opening credit lines for projects around the world. And that's all been shut down because the government's decided they're going to run the monetary show. So it's a very convoluted story, I realize, and very unfamiliar to most people. You know, you've got one candidate out there, this Kevin, I forget his last name, and it doesn't matter, promoting the fact that he's the only one that's against these mandates that are going on in Alberta right now. Well, I've never supported him from day one, and I know that it's a patented word that is replacing words like flu and cold and becoming a propagandized campaign to not only mind fuck the people, but change the whole monetary system in favor of these tyrannical governments so that they can run the whole show. Are you kidding me? That was the plan. And don't anybody try and tell me anything different. However, I'm also on the inside of the banking world where I know that asset-backed funds, asset-backed accounts that are unlimited, not in the limited corporate sense of the corporate governments of the world. These governments are all just corporations, okay? So they're all limited, and they think in terms and speak in terms of limitations and lack. There is no limitations and lack. There is nothing but abundance, not only in the system that they provide by going back and getting these bonds and just keep pumping the money into situations, infrastructure, and everything else, and then pretending that it's debt. Debt to who, I asked all of the other candidates out there. Who on earth do you think we're publicly indebted to? Number one. Then go back and say, okay, these asset-backed accounts are unlimited, and they've been blocked by the same banks that are colluding with these governments of the world to hold those funds, those unlimited funds, away from humanity. Well, no longer, okay? That's what's changing. That is the reset on this earth, not some reset that these governments are talking about, and that they're going to reset things and build back better and all their language that they use. That's bullshit. The reset is coming through these asset-backed accounts that are unlimited, and not virtually unlimited, but unlimited, okay? Unlimited enough that they can supply all the needs and the comfort for every human being, government aside. We don't need the government anymore. Once these funds start to open up, we don't need government at all. If they have a job at all, then they administer the process. Get some good people in there to administer the process, and then get the hell out of the way. We don't need them for projects. We don't need them for infrastructure, because there's unlimited project funding coming through these asset-backed accounts. And you heard it here first, folks, if not somewhere else. So thank you very much, William, for setting it up. And
you're very welcome, Randall. There's a lot to unpack there. And the first thought I had was kind of similar to one of the earliest shows we did. And this is like the 23rd show now. So we've had a few under our belt. But the first thought is, what? No government? And then how do taxes fit in? And how come we never used these asset-backed funds before? I mean, this sounds too good to be true, Randall. How is it possible that you can make this happen? And why is this all turning around right now?
Turning around is the key word. And it happened previous, okay? It happened in the early 1800s. It was happening. It was only in the 1870s and then just kept ramping up ever since then to go away completely from asset-backed funding and just completely use the autographs and agreements of people, whether it be the autographs and agreements taken fraudulently from the citizens of the nations, or from the bankers who just autograph and agree the beginning of credit instruments and standalone credit instruments in banks to build towers and to build developments around the world. This is knowledge that needs to get out there. And I might be the only one spewing it on the internet like I do, but I'm fine with that. If nobody wants to listen to it, that's fine. If you want some common sense in the banking industry, either ask me or go ask your other politicians. Go ask the other candidates. How is public funding or public debt, as they call it, manifested? Ask them. Just see if they can answer that question. One question for you. If they can't, come back over here and put a check mark. Don't put an X. I'd rather have a check mark beside my name on the ballot in Calgary for the mayor on October 20th. And then we'll get rid of all the taxes, because taxes are unnecessary too. We can get rid of all that. If you want a ring road, if you want a green line, we can fund that through the unlimited funding that's available. But the people have to decide that they want things, and it has to make sense, and it has to be good for everyone and everything every day. If I'm the mayor, it has to be good for the environment, it has to be good for the people, and then the funding will come through. It's not finance, it's not debt, there is no such thing.
Well, we've been in a situation where we've struggled and we scrimped and we scratched and we saved and we worked and we toiled and we bled and we got sick and we got healthy and then we got sick again, and then we started losing money and we had disasters and then we had recessions and we had upturns and we had downturns, and now you're saying that's all BS. I'm going, that's a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. How am I supposed to believe you? Because if I vote for you, am I voting for a kook? Am I voting for somebody who just doesn't really have a sense of reality? Or are you telling us that the reality that we've known all these years is really not?
You can pretty much throw everything that you've learned, everything that you've believed in your lifetime and in mine, in the garbage. It's that simple. We've been hoodwinked by a Rockefeller education system, as I call it, indoctrination system, that has, made these highly intelligent people, okay, created these highly intelligent people, doctors and nurses and politicians. A lot of these doctors and nurses are saying, hey, wait a minute here. This guy's got a little bit of something going on. And besides what he's saying, you know, there's a lot of lying going on at the government level, a lot of propaganda going on at the government level right now. So maybe we should listen a little bit more, see what else he has to say. Like the fact that every war that we've known in the 2 wars that were available or to our knowledge in history, World War I and World War II, both those wars were funded by who? The banks. Both sides of the war, the weapons and the defense, funded, right? And then what? Then they decided, well, too many people were catching on to that. There's not too many soldiers that want to just, you know, go on their battlefield and kill each other and die. And so we got to have another war here. And that last war was on our minds, okay? In a biological and a mental sense. The war on the mind to indoctrinate people, to get them believing stories that the government tells, to get them tied into law. I shouldn't say law, legal statute after legal statute after legal statute, until we've got how many on the books now? Hundreds, if not thousands of legal statutes that if you even cross the street when there's nobody else on the street walking across the street, you can get a jaywalking ticket for that. I mean, it's so insane and not so controlled by what? Government. Govern, control the mind, mente. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. If you want to go there, you know, kook, yeah, I'm a little kooky sometimes, but as far as conspire means breathe together, okay? Conspire. And if you want to plot something, to plot out a new plan, a new world order, or a divine world order, then you could breathe together and do that. What I'm suggesting is we plot out a divine new order, okay? A divine order for mankind. One that has common sense, one that has love, one that doesn't try and control and manipulate the minds of the masses with propaganda, with words, which is what is going on right now. A word spelt backwards, D-I-V-O-C, which means in Hebrew, invaded by an evil spirit. Weird, eh? Isn't that weird how, you know, like, it could be just games that are being played and patented words and nothing else but a flu bug and a cold? Could be. Not saying anything else, but could be.
So you said that was D-I-V-O-C. So that would be C-O-V. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now we got it figured out. All right.
Which, we switched that word around, okay?
Yeah.
Consciously observed, C-O. How
V.
did I say that? Validated.
Yeah. ID.
Yeah. But wait a minute, I got to get this right because I wrote this last week and I think it's the new way to say those letters. Conscious observation, verifying individual divinity.
All right. Awesome. You
We're gonna
passed your
switch
own
those
test.
letters around.
That's awesome. Now,
Thank you.
Randall, you mentioned previously, well, in one of your answers earlier, that you walk a lot and you walk around the city a lot, 13 kilometers a day on average, according to what you were telling us. And
Yeah.
I assume that's not all in the trails and bushes. You actually do, you know, visit with people and talk with people. I'm curious, have you talked to a lot of people that are, I don't want to call them higher up, but people who hold certain occupations that many folks would consider sort of a higher level occupation, like doctors or people that work in higher level situation. If you talk to any of them about any of this, and what kind of reactions have you been getting about that, if you have?
Well, that's a good one because I was down at a rally the other day. I call it a rally at the Foothills Hospital. So this was interesting because I was at another rally with these nurses that were going across Canada promoting a new way of looking at health care and the medicine industry, okay? Not allopathy, but the medicine industry, the remedies, the way of looking at life from a caring, compassionate, loving place and using remedies rather than pharmaceuticals for care of human beings and their health. And these ladies just did a magnificent presentation down at City Hall about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Went down to that. They organized another one across Canada, in all the cities across Canada last week. And I attended that one here at the Foothills Hospital. Lots of doctors and nurses standing. The average age of that rally was probably close to my age, 55, 60 years old, thereabouts. A lot of gentlemen wearing, suits and very nice clothes. So I'm assuming that a lot of them were doctors, okay? And they were standing around saying, we don't want a passport. And I'm thinking, well, like we got to do this carefully, right? Because, this is where we run into these troubles with the censors these days, right? So why wouldn't you want a passport? A passport lets you travel around, doesn't it? Why on earth would these people be standing on the street with signs saying we don't want a passport? Well, that's why. And I'm not going to say any more. Everyone knows why I'm here. I'm not anti anything, okay? I am pro-life. I am pro-choice. I am pro-love. I am pro-sanity. I am pro-freedom. And we're here in this time and space in the physical 3D where the government is anti all of those things that I just mentioned, okay? So don't tell me that I'm some kind of tinfoil hat wearing, this is straw, by the way, conspiracy theorist or anything else. I'm talking truth. And if people are prepared to listen and put their little check mark beside my name, I'm prepared to lead this city. Lead this city with truth and honesty and love and consciousness and care and comfort for every individual and all the things that this city wants on a monetary basis, as long as those things are good for everyone and everything every day, including the environment and Mother Earth, of course, we can do all of that because the world is changing and it's going away from this deceptive, complete, utter, insane illusion and lie of debt.
You basically had said that, things would be different if you were in office as mayor. And, let's face it, we hear that a lot from people who are in the process of, rallying the troops to vote for them for political office, even if you don't want to call it political office. I'm just wondering if people elect you as mayor and you get the votes that you need to become the next mayor of Calgary, how will it change? What are some of the things that you would like to see happen or plan to do? Can you give us a little bit of an outline? I know that a lot will depend on a lot of things, but what are some of the things that you are pretty sure you're going to start on and then go from there? What can people expect to see?
Well, I'm just going to, as an elected official at that high level, start questioning the higher level governments, right? Start with the provincial government and then go to the federal government and then go to the world government that runs all of that shit show and say to them, okay, like, why do you keep lying about this idea of public debt? Tell me. I'm the mayor of Calgary now. I'm not just the guy walking the streets. I'm the mayor of a city, a very large city, 1.5 million people. And we all want to know why you keep lying to us about that word debt. Why? Okay, that's a pretty big change, isn't it? That's a pretty big step for someone to take who puts himself into a leadership position over 1.5 million people. And beyond that, definitely all these mandates are going to go right out the door because it's just insane. 2,600 related deaths out of 4.5 million people is not a pandemic, never should have ever been promoted or propagandized the way it is. It's just utterly insane. And to say to me that, oh, it's because we had all the defense mechanisms. We didn't have any defense mechanisms when this thing started. None whatsoever. The people were riding on the trains in the winter when it started, having parties. There was no cleaning going on. There was drunks on the trains. I ride the trains every day, so I see that. Do any of you other candidates ride the train? Do any of you other candidates walk on the streets? Just tell me, show me where you go. I go on the train every day and I do not wear anything on my face. And I refuse it. And I haven't been given a ticket because I just say to them, look, I'm exempt from that and I'm not going to put up with it. And if you want me to get off the train, I'll get off the train, but I'm going to get back on next stop. I don't put up with any of that stuff. It's just complete, utter tyranny for no reason whatsoever. There is no pandemic. And that's it.
Now, it's a bit of the way I remember it, and I was watching your videos for the last year or so, and it was a bit of a funny story on how you decided to put yourself into, and I don't know how to term it because you don't like that term running for mayor as in like a race, but you basically said, I want to be mayor of this city because, hey, if those two folks are still in office by the time we get to September. Can you tell us more about that story?
Well, I mean, again, it's a complete theatrical comedic tragedy, I call it, or tragic comedy down in the US. That man, that anyone on earth could think that man is the leader of the free world. Please, if you're a liberal supporter, if you're a Democrat in Alberta, you're listening to this, please watch Joe Biden speak and tell me again, oh God, I'm so proud of that man. He's the leader of the free world. Come on, please tell me that. Please tell me that you're so proud of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that cackling weird thing that giggles and laughs and doesn't say a fucking word. Tell me that those two are the leaders of the free world. But the story, I'll go back to what you asked, William, and that was that I said last fall or last winter sometime, if those two, yeah, it was last winter because obviously he got inaugurated in January 20th as if. So when that happened, I said, okay, if that thing and that other thing are still here in September, I will run for mayor. Well, they're still there, but maybe not on Monday because, the election results are starting to really flip fast down there. So I might still be able to get out of this, but I don't want to. I want to be in, and I want to be on that ballot. And I want this video to go to thousands and thousands and thousands of Calgarians to open their eyes and to listen for 15, 20 minutes or an hour, if you can handle it, to some raw truth.
I can vouch for the seriousness of Randall's candidacy now because he had a chance last week. I gave him the opportunity. I asked him the question. I said, all right, are you still serious about this? Because you still have a chance to back out. You haven't actually officially registered yet. And you still haven't quite yet, but you said this is the week. So we can expect some big announcement from your camp next Sunday on our next show to let us know that you're in. Am I accurate in saying that?
What day is it today?
Today's Sunday. Yep.
So we got a couple extra days because I think the 15th is the day that I have to be in the race. So if I'm not in by next Sunday, then I'll be in by the Monday or Tuesday following, because the 15th, I think, is the deadline to be in there. And I fully intend to. Like, I don't want to use anybody else's money, and I'm not going to. Sorry. I mean, I'm not going to use anybody else's money. I have funds owed to me by our illustrious leader, Justin Trudeau, at the moment, to the tune of about $9,000. And they've been holding that money since April 15th. And I'm not saying that they're doing it because I am who I am. It's just how backed up the government is with this silliness of trying to, deal with what their own lies, right? So that money should be here this week. I also am part of, as I've said over and over on this show, I will be distributing funds from these asset-backed accounts to projects, not only here in Calgary and in Alberta, but around the world. And then when I do that, it's going to be amounting to very large sums of money. I don't want to spew out numbers because everybody, oh yeah, he's full of shit. No, very large projects. Let's just put it simply like that. And when that money flows, I've been given the go ahead by the funders to go ahead and use some of that money for a campaign here in Calgary. So I fully expect that money to come. I don't know why it hasn't come yet. Part of it is because these governments are clinging to their manipulation and exploitation of the monetary system and using these autographed and agreement bonds to just keep pumping the credit out and using it for the infrastructure projects we've already talked about, for these things that we've already talked about that they need the money for these things that they need the money for, and for the passports, which is now, again, coming full circle because those passports with an autograph on that agreement, on that manifest, guess what they turn into? Okay, guess what they turn into? More opportunities, more instruments for the government to trade and start that cycle of trade in the banking system again, because it's all derivatives. Whenever it's derived from the autograph of the human being, okay, the consent of the human being, that's a tradable instrument in the banking industry. And I know that because I'm in the banking industry at those levels. So challenging.
Last week, you mentioned something about a bond that was created, and it had something to do with what we're currently experiencing. We just called it PAN bond, for short, and it was kind of a cute name. I was thinking even Panda bond might have been kind of cool, but so is this thing that you're talking about, the trading on the passports and all that kind of stuff, is that also part of that bond?
Every time that you autograph and give consent to a government or a an organization like that, they use those to trade in the banking world for credit. That's as simple as that. We're talking about birth certificates, we're talking about driver's license, social insurance numbers, everything like that. The main one is when you give your overall consent to the government to do as they wish, they create or they manifest Canada bonds, okay? Canada bonds that they supposedly sell to these banks, the banks that don't have any money to start with. It's just a big game. It's just a big paper game is all it is. And paper was, anyway, we won't go there for now.
Okay. Well, you were talking earlier about how everything, could change quite considerably when you become mayor of the city. And I was also thinking about, just what you just said with regards to how they trade us anytime that we sign something that's related to a government document. And I've got to imagine that there's going to be some really upset people if there aren't people already aware of this. And the temptation obviously is to get mad, get angry, fight back and protest and do that kind of thing. But you aren't exactly a protesting type of person. That's not your kind of thing. But do you have any suggestions on what the general public can do besides, voting you as mayor? But what else could the public do that maybe isn't like protesting, like carrying signs and asking for permission for the government to change their rules? What is a more proactive way of going forward? Do you have any suggestions around that?
Well, first thing I thought of was that prior to this mayoralty election, we have another fraudulent election coming up on the 20th of September. And when I say fraudulent, there's no point in even voting for that one, unless you're voting for maybe some obscure party, like I heard a party called the Maverick Party here in Western Canada. I mean, vote for somebody like that. Get those other idiots out of there because they're the same bird with two different wings, like the conservatives and liberals and those NDP goofs. They're all doing the same thing. They're not telling you anything different. They'll just go in there and lie through their teeth, the higher level ones, and the rest of them don't know what they're doing. And that's why I have mercy and pity and compassion for most politicians, because none of them really know what the hell they're doing. And even more mercy and compassion and pity for doctors who are still promoting this propaganda campaign, and nurses and stuff like that. I have pity for them. And the same with, municipal leaders like Naheed Nenshi. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just following along like a little puppy. You want leaders like that? You want all the rest of these guys, I won't call them goofballs, oops, I just did. These other guys that are candidates running who are talking the same story, or they're saying, well, no, listen, I'm pro-choice, like that Super Dave guy. What a goof that was. I'm telling you, he's on the ballot. You could vote for Super Dave, whatever his name was. Osborne, no, it was Super Dave, Ozone Dave. That's what his name was. My God, he was wearing
Osborne was the guy that flew out of the cannon that way back on
That's right.
a different show.
But this guy, he wears a mask and a toque or something like that, and he's like, what a freaking weirdo that one was. And I mean, he says, I got what the hell, there's some multimillionaire guy in Calgary. I got him backing me and everything. I'm like, well, obviously that guy got his millions from somewhere else too, other than his brain. If he's backing you, like, I don't think he's backing him, to be honest. But whatever, those goofs are just, you call that leadership, and all they're going to do is go into City Hall and fight for your rights. All they're going to talk about is how much money they're spending, and then say, I'm a conservative or I'm a liberal. We shouldn't spend as much because I'm a conservative. No, we should spend more because I'm a liberal. Spend what? Like they don't even know what they're talking about to start with when it comes to budgets and money, because they're all thinking that debt exists, okay? And that we have to have taxes to actually pay for things. We don't. There's no limit to the amount of funding that's available.
Wait a minute. Debt taxes aren't real? What? Are you serious?
We don't need them. It's just it's part of the game. It's part of the whole thing to keep you in that lack mentality, to think that way, okay? And just to keep shuffling people around and off balance, kilter, whatever you want to call it, fighting with one another over budgets and money and everything else, so that the people don't know their true power as creators, so that the people don't know their true divine natural activation as creators on this beautiful heavenly Mother Earth that we live on. We're distracted by this whole story of money, the whole story, the whole insane illusion of debt, and everything else revolves around that, from taxes to politics to science to history. It's all based on this one simple, goddamn ridiculous notion of debt, when there is none.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've heard that one before, except on this show before. But I wanted to talk about history a little bit. Your history. You didn't start out being an international banker. You didn't grow up and say, oh boy, I can't wait till I grow up so I can become an international banker. So what the heck happened? How did you become an international banker?
Well, I started by going into business at a very high level, putting a number of options on multi-million-dollar projects here in Calgary, beef packing plants, traveled around the world, went over to China trying to attract investment, starting to wonder at that point in my life already, what the hell's going on here? What the hell's going on here? There's no limit. There's no lack to money. There's millionaires and billionaires, but then again, what about all these people that are sitting on these ancient assets that I found out very early on when I was overseas? Okay, very early on. How many thousands of years do you think we've been on this planet? And how many of those thousands of years, or maybe millions, we don't know history because it's all bullshit too, but how many of those years have we been mining precious metals, shiny things, stones, diamonds, pearls, you name it, and mining them, as in, now they're mine. As soon as you mine them, get them out of the earth, then they're mine. How many of those years have we been doing that? And we're going to say that, oh, just the last couple hundred, we built up all of this monetary debt and everything else. Well, what happened to all those assets? Well, they're held off ledger in the banking system, and they've been held off ledger completely since 1971. That's
Oh,
when we went completely into this fiat monetary system on the government level, and most banking uh, transactions as well. Am I saying there's no asset-backed transactions? No, there's some. There's some lumber and there's some oil and there's some, other assets. There's still a few people deal with gold and silver and different things like that, but nothing like what's available. There's so much available to work into a system, and then the medium of exchange, William, is simply the banks. Okay, because the accounts exist. Everybody talks about cash or credit being the medium of exchange. No, the medium of exchange, the middle is the bank. That's all we need, because the accounts are there, and then they come through the accounts for the project funders or for the comfort of the people. So the middle is the bank. But that that middle is only an administrator. Doesn't get involved like the central bank system was getting involved, exploiting and manipulating the flow of any kind of funds, holding them off ledger or blocking them.
So I've heard, like in some of my research and some of the things that I've been watching and following, I've heard that the real bad guys of the world are bankers. And they're the ones who, have converted this world into what it is right now. And you're saying something a little bit different from what I've heard there. So are bankers really bad, or what am I missing here? There seems to be something there that I'm missing, and I'm sure a lot of other people are missing too. Are bankers bad, or is that too big a stereotype to put on bankers as a whole?
That's a stereotype again, because every human being is making a choice every single day. The cabal is right here. It's right there. It's in your brain and in mine. And when you get to these high level bankers that have the choice to whether or not to allow in the central banking system, this was the way it's been operating, right? And still to a certain extent right now, until we completely shift this over. But these bankers have the capability to say yes or no to a movement of a transaction, right? And if that transaction is multi-millions or billions of dollars, and they decide, because they're not making enough money off of it, or their buddies aren't making enough money off of it, or they're manipulated by someone up the food chain from them, and they choose not to let that money flow, which could have fed thousands of people in Africa or helped housing in Manila or some other thing, then yeah, they sound like pretty bad guys, don't they? But all I'm saying is that it's just choice. It's just human choice. There's no group of individuals that are a cabal, okay? There's just shitty choices being made by people, and a lot more shitty choices being made by the governments around the world in the past and even up until now than we need. And we're going to move to people making good choices, good people with consciousness, good people with heart, with love in their hearts, that are going to say, okay, I don't think we need another Walmart today. We could use this money for a community, an eco village over here in California instead of another fucking Walmart. That's the simplicity of what these choices that could be made in the banking system as it exists today. So the banking system that's coming out from these asset-backed funds that are held and kept by the keepers who know that that money is for humanity, who know that it does not need to be exploited and manipulated by some central bank banker making a shitty decision. They're going to put that money into hands of people that are going to start eco villages, that are going to get back to some beautiful, wonderful, natural farming methods and sustainable practices in all kinds of industries, from holistic medicine to food to technology. All of that is coming. All of that is on the horizon, right there, right now, folks, and it's coming fast.
We were talking about this a fair bit throughout the summer, and it hasn't physically seemingly shown up yet in the general public. You still sound very confident that it's coming. It's coming. But any idea on what caused it to be delayed or when it might actually come to fruition?
Well, I received a document. Like I'm connected to bankers, but also to government level officials with departments like DOD, DOJ. I'm talking the American side. Okay, I don't want to use the word government when I say that, but Department of Defense, Department of Justice, CIA, FBI. There's good and bad in every one of them. Again, don't pin it down and say, oh, cocaine import agency, CIA are all bad guys. Some of them are okay too. Some of them don't import cocaine. So, there's good people in every organization and shitty decision makers in every organization. But I had a document or a short video sent to me this week from someone talking about Project Looking Glass, okay? 2012, when the military of the United States started to take a look at things from a very clear manner. So Looking Glass is basically going to clarify something for you, right? You're going to see it sharper. You're going to see the details. And everyone at that point, and in fact, everyone in history, because I want to talk about that, but I don't want to relate to it too much because it is information for those of you who think in terms of, government hidden secrets and stuff. You can go there and we could even share that video if we can get it up on here with William. It's a very interesting little short video. But that clarity relates back to something that is very simple in my mind, and that is that the creator of this existence that we live on, this heavenly plane of existence, whatever it is perfect, okay? It is genuinely, naturally perfect. All the animals, all the plants, all of that, it's just perfect. The world of man, which is created in our minds, is the only thing that's kind of fucked up, okay? And that being said, that perfection is always evolving, is always moving towards completion, right? That is the way God, the creator, made it, okay? So us, the human beings who are kind of fucked up, are also evolving, and our consciousness, our loving consciousness, is evolving at the same time. People knew that way back when, and they tried to divert it and manipulate it and exploit it, for their own profit, for their own greed, and for their own power. And that's what we've been talking about for this whole video. Most of those people are gone now. Most of them have just, passed away, and their sons and daughters don't really want anything to do with it. George Bush Sr. was one of the last, and there's George Soros. There's a few of those goofs still hanging around, but there's not very many of them that are left. David Rockefeller, he's gone, and they were the ones that made a big plan, educate the people with a certain Rockefeller education system, change all of history and revamp it for their minds and get them indoctrinated, and then create this separation and this class of intelligence because I'm educated into this system and I'm smarter than you, and then monetary related, putting the money into those people's hands that are educated or indoctrinated into that society. And don't get me wrong, I'm not running those people down. I have complete utter compassion for the intelligentsia, the academia of the world. Compassion, because they had the most indoctrination, the most pounding of material, of words into their minds to get that doctorate, to get that thesis done, to get that master's of business degree or whatever. It is like it took hours and hours and years in most cases. Try and be a lawyer and see how long it takes you to get indoctrinated into that legal system that is complete, utter lunacy. The whole admiralty law I mean, other than possibly protecting people from killing each other and stuff like that, the rest of it is just complete, utter lunacy, backs up this lie of debt and everything else. And now I'm going on and on and on, and I better stop.
Well, I think we're getting to the point now where we want to wrap up our visit today. But I did have one more question, and then I'll leave it
Sure.
to you to do your very famous blessing for those that have not had the experience of seeing that before. So you'll enjoy that, I think. Now, I kept wondering a few minutes ago when you were talking about the bankers at the high levels that make the decisions whether they go ahead or not with funding a project. I just kept wondering, will they accept the projects that you bring to them? Like as a mayor of Calgary, you become mayor and you say, we're going to do this and this and this because the people want it. What makes you so sure that they're going to say, yes, we will fund you for that?
Well, because these are the funders, they're not the bankers. The bankers were the ones that were manipulating and exploiting and making the decisions where the funding could go. And there was an agenda, and it was a globalist agenda. Everyone knows that word. Everybody is aware of the Build Back Better agenda, So all these politicians and these goofballs talk about now. Build back better. Where does that come from? Bilderberg. It's one agenda, one plan, and that was globalism. Donald Trump speaks about it. If you remember that, and you just don't hate Donald Trump because you hate him for some reason. I'm not saying I'm pro anything here right now. I'm just saying, that man had some common sense, and he's coming back anyway. So whatever, like those people, it doesn't really matter to me. I talk from a level beyond government. So government being also those bankers that you just mentioned, the central bankers who were making decisions when and where those funds should flow to. All funny money funds, don't get me wrong, those were still not asset-backed funds. Those were manifested funds that they were making those decisions with. So it's going to be a whole rewrite, William.
So are we going to see a change in currency too?
We'll see an asset-backed currency, yes. And currency, again, it's credit. Okay, it is. I'll use the word dollar. I don't think it's going to change. Like they're going to say it's a Canadian dollar or a US dollar or maybe a North American dollar or whatever. It's still going to be a credit. There'll be a certain amount of paper currency floating around, but it won't be fiat anymore. It'll be backed by assets again. And that is a project, okay? That is a project just like a project for a new eco village or a new eco city or a new, agricultural project. A gold or an asset-backed currency or dollar is another project because we haven't flipped from that corporate mentality of governments yet. Once we flip that out, then that dollar is just part of the system. It's not. Yeah, sorry.
Do you think we'll be seeing any cryptocurrencies in that changeover that will stay?
Cryptocurrencies to me, if they're backed by assets, there's nothing wrong with them. If they're just backed by mining of, electricity or whatever the hell people talk about. I'm not a crypto fan myself, and I don't know much about it other than they're just mining to try and get long numerals that are unidentifiable. So to me that doesn't really make too much sense. But if the cryptocurrency, don't like the word in the first place, crypto, it's kind of cryptic. But like if it's backed by assets, then it's got potential. Am I happy that cryptocurrencies came in? By all means, because they scared the shit out of these central bankers, thinking they couldn't manipulate and control the flow of them because of the blockchain technology. And blockchain is one of my favorite words, if not, peer-to-peer or sovereign-to-sovereign or ledger-to-ledger. Get rid of the middleman. That's the bottom line. And that middleman was the central bank system that was manipulating the flow of phony money.
And on that note, with a little bit of funniness to end off the show, we will say thank you for the visit, and we look forward to the news that you're officially registered next week. So Randall, if you would be so kind to give us your infamous closing blessing, we'll call it an interview and we'll come back again next Sunday.
Beautiful, William. Thank you. And yeah, like it's all about love, guys. Like we're here for you. We're not here to blast you or tell you, you know, that they're bad or there's bad people or whatever. We're just here to tell the truth and to show you that there is a much better way. And that better way is complete, utter transparency and honesty at the government level, or else just move the government the hell right out of the way with peace, harmony, love, abundance, and freedom for everyone and everything every day on our minds. William and I say in abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria. Thank you so much for listening, folks. And check mark beside Randall on that ballot, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye, Randall.